Chapter 7.6 Paper Preparation and Review. There are many books, journal articles, and tutorials which describe the challenges of writing a research paper. In most scientific and engineering journals, there is a page limit that must be strictly obeyed. Papers that exceed these limits can be automatically rejected or will attract a significant page charge for the over-limit pages. Most journals welcome complete papers which are shorter, even substantially shorter than the maximum page limit. There is no advantage in adding additional information to a paper if this information is irrelevant or repetitive. Scientific writing usually conforms to the common format with the section heading listed as Introduction, Background or Literature Review, Research Method, Research Result, Discussion and Conclusions, Acknowledgement, and References. It is advisable to use more specific heading and not the generic heading listed. This reduces the need for some introductory sentences at the beginning of each section. A paper on a water purification system using green sand might have the following section headings: World Challenges in Water Purification as the introduction, Common Purification Method as the background or literature review, the Green Sand Filter Pilot Plant, or the research method, filter performance, the research result, discussion and conclusion, acknowledgement and references. The page limit applies to the total content of the paper including the title, abstract, all of the main text, the references, and all figures and tables in their caption. This means that a writer must pay particular attention to the proportion of each section. There is no requirement to have a section of the same size, but although authors may write sections of significantly unequal length, a simple calculation of the approximate size for each section can be used as a general guide. If the page limit is 4 pages with 2 columns on each page, and the standard format is used, then one can use the following section limits as an estimate of how much to write. Title and abstract 0.5 columns, references 0.5 columns, 6 figures with caption, 2 columns and 2 tables with caption 0.5 columns. This leaves space for 4.5 columns for the section covering the introduction, background literature, review, theory, experimental research method, results, and discussion and conclusions. On average, each section will have 0.75 columns of words and equations. Clearly, the description must be concise and directly to the point. It is essential that all figures and equations follow these rules. Figures are referenced in the main text. Figures have captions which are self-explanatory. If there is more than one line on the same plot, then these lines can be distinguished using a legend or other labels on the graph. All equations must be numbered. All symbols in the equation must be defined in the text close to the equation where the symbols are first used. All symbols must be unique, that is, a symbol must never be used to represent more than one quantity or variable. Printed papers. Colored pictures require special processing and so might incur additional expenses. Writers should attempt to use black and white images. This means that multiple lines in the same plot must be distinguished using different lines and different symbols. Paper published in the internet. No additional cost for colored images as there is no requirement for colored printing. Journal requirements. Journals might require authors to submit their paper using a template. This refers to camera ready and means that the paper submitted is in the correct style for publication in the first submission. Other journals require the submission of the title, abstract, authors, and keywords on the web page and the main text. Every figure and every table are submitted as a separate files. Once all section has been validated, the paper is assembled as a single file or PDF file. This file must be reviewed and checked by the authors before final submission to the editorial board is possible. Take note, all these processes and checks are automated in online paper submissions. The editor-in-chief of the journal will allocate an associate editor who will seek the voluntary services of two or more reviewers based on their expertise, and once the reviewers have accepted their nomination, the file is sent to the reviewers for consideration. Blind review process. The names and affiliations of the authors are not included in the file sent to the reviewers. This aims to reduce the possible prejudicial effect of the nationality and the laboratory prestige, etc. on the reviewers. The reviewers are required to comment on both technical content and the quality of the language used, and will submit one of the following recommendations: accept no changes required, accept minor editorial changes required, accept major changes required, or reject, usually because there is no major scientific or engineering advance reported, or parts of the paper has been previously published, or parts of the paper have been directly copied, or the paper is technically incorrect. Author-reviewer process. The reviewer's decision will be justified by some general comments on the paper. The associate editor will review the reports from each of the reviewers and then make an overall decision in one of the four categories above. The associate editor's decision and the reviewer's response will be returned to the author's information. If a revision is required, then the paper must be corrected and resubmitted together with a detailed description of what changes has been made. The review process will be undertaken once, twice, or even 3 times depending on the reviewer's comments and the associate editor's decision. Usually, all reviewers of the paper must agree that the paper is acceptable for publication before the associate editor will recommend publication. Following the acceptance of the file, the journal editor will arrange typesetting the paper, including the figures and tables, correct any typographical errors, and send a copy of the paper back to the author for verification. If the paper has been typeset, then the only minor changes to the language and references will be required. After a copyright form has been signed by the authors transferring the copyright of the paper to the journal publisher, the paper will be officially published on paper and/or on the web and will become available widely to the engineering community. 7.6.1 Paper Reviewers. The search for and selection of reviewers is a vital part of peer review process and the authenticity of the scientific method. Reviewing is a task which should not be undertaken lightly or by those inexperienced in the field. It is important that reviewers only accept the task if they are competent and knowledgeable in the specific field. The specific instruction to reviewer relate to the making comments and recommendation on the following topics. Abstract. Does the abstract sum up major findings clearly and succinctly? Novelty. Does the paper present new knowledge which is important to the engineering discipline? Literature and review. Does the paper adequately refer to the most important published literature, both historical and recently published articles? Experimental method. Is the experimental method appropriate, and is the method capable of yielding the correct result to the accuracy required? Results and analysis. Is the method of analysis appropriate and statistically valid? Have the results been independently verified through the comparison with the work of others or through other methods or theory, computational modeling, etc.? Discussion and conclusion. Do the conclusions logically follow from the research results? Have the author reviewed their method and commented on the strengths and weaknesses of their experimental method? Have the authors commented on the next logical step of this research? Have the authors commented on the impact of this work on the engineering discipline? Quality of writing. Is the language clear and concise? All topographical error must be noted and referred back to the authors. Quality of figures. Are the figures sufficiently clear? Are the axes on the plots labeled correctly together with the units? Are the captions self-contained? In undergraduate teaching, university academics are required to mark student laboratory reports and assignments. The feedback given to the students through this process is vital to the education of the next generation of engineers. It is important that undergraduate students write their reports in the same manner as scientific or engineering research paper. It is then very important that the academic marking those reports conduct the review of the submission in the same manner as he or she would review a paper submitted to a research journal. Thus, a junior academic can gain experience in the process of reviewing papers from undergraduates as performance and knowledge of the students grow proportionally. After finalizing a research paper, a team of novice researchers should apply the criteria given above. If the research team is uncertain about the quality, then it is more likely that the reviewers will take an even stronger negative view and the paper will be rejected. This is a self-check on the quality of a paper about to be submitted for review. 7.6.2 Paper Reviewer Responses. When a paper has been submitted for publication in a journal, the author received the feedback from associate editors as minor changes or major changes. They must make corrections to the original submission in a fixed time allotted by the journal editorial committee. Commonly, the paper will be resubmitted to the journal and sent out for review to the previous reviewers. In order to make the second review relatively simple for the reviewers, the author must submit two documents. First is the revised paper with the important changes highlighted, and second, a list of all the reviewers' comments and the author's responses to the comments. Example number 1 of paper reviewer responses. Reviewer comment number 1. The author have not adequately addressed the previously published work of Jones. This paper reports a similar experimental method. The author's response. We had not seen this paper before. It does demonstrate a similar technique, but the results were applied to a very different soil type, which have now included 3 sentences in the literature review describing their techniques. See the highlighted section in the revised document. So I have also highlighted this part of the PowerPoint so that you can see that they make it easier for the reviewers to spot the changes they have made in their paper. Reviewer comment number 2. Figure 5 has incorrect units on the y-axis. Please check. So this is a simple error. The author's response. The figure has been changed and the revised axis label is now correct. In reviewer number 3. Do the author think that their technique can be applied to all soil types? I believe that the presence of water in the sample will prevent accurate results from being obtained. The author responds, this is correct. We have revised the sentence and included the phrase for predominantly dry soil, etc. Example number 2 of paper review responses. Response to reviewer number 1. General comment. The manuscript has been well improved, and I think most of my comments have been addressed with either new analysis or necessary discussions. Response. Thank you very much. Some minor revisions for the author to consider. Minor comment number 1. Ambiguous or arbitrary to some extent, which may still lead to some seemingly new findings, but this finding may be scientifically misleading. Please consider rewriting this sentence. Author's response. Thanks for your kind reminders. We revised the sentence as follows. Studies without systematic model evaluations, being ambiguous or arbitrary to some extent, may still lead to some seemingly new but scientifically misleading findings. The author also included the page number and line where he made the changes in the paper. Example number 3 of paper review responses. Response to reviewer number 2. General comment. The revision highlights the importance of model evaluation and provides a reasonable approach for evaluating the results from urban climate simulations. Overall, the revision is well organized and clearly presented. In particular, Figure 1 is very nice and helpful to understand the framework. In my opinion, this paper is worth to be published in GMD. The author's response. Thank you very much for your previous comments that help us improve this manuscript. Minor suggestion. Comment number 1. In Table 1, use a PDF or PSS or probability density function and Perkins skill score instead of probability density function and PSS. Response. Revised accordingly. Comment number 2. It would be better to put Table 4 and Figure 2.2 to 21 in the supplementary material. Authors respond. Revised accordingly. So that is all for my video presentation. I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching.